I still remember that electrifying moment as if it were splashed in neon across my soul, the moment I learned that my wife had taken off on a solo trip without me. In the first 100 heartbeats, every cherished hope we once built together, every silent sacrifice made for our shared dreams, shattered into a cascade of disbelief, bitterness, and raw determination. Her sudden departure, announced with casual nonchalance, struck me like a lightning bolt, demanding I confront the reality of a love that had silently unraveled. Now, as fate would have it, she's watching me vacation with someone new, a twist of destiny that ignited within me an unyielding resolve to reclaim my worth and redefine the very meaning of freedom. For years, I had believed our marriage was a testament to mutual trust and shared ambitions. I poured my heart and soul into building a life we both dreamed of, a life filled with long conversations over coffee, quiet evenings planning future adventures, and promises of unwavering support during life's storms. I dedicated countless hours to my work, believing that every sacrifice would fortify our future and ensure that our love was resilient enough to withstand any challenge. I took pride in the small victories, from saving diligently for our future trips to planning weekend getaways that promised a blend of relaxation and adventure. It all seemed so simple, so secure, until that fateful day when she casually announced her intention to embark on a solo journey, leaving me to wonder if I had ever truly mattered. I remember the day clearly. It was an unusually bright morning when I noticed her packing her suitcase with an air of quiet determination. There was no dramatic farewell, no tearful goodbye, only a nonchalant, almost indifferent, "I need some time for myself." I tried to mask my shock with a forced smile, believing that perhaps it was just a temporary escape, a chance to clear her mind. But as the hours passed and her departure became inevitable, a cold truth began to sink in: our relationship was fraying at the edges. I spent the remainder of the day in a state of stunned disbelief, grappling with a maelstrom of emotions, confusion, hurt, and an emerging sense of betrayal that I had never anticipated. The silence that followed her departure was deafening. I wandered through our empty apartment, each room a silent testament to the life we had built together. The living room, once filled with laughter and the comforting hum of shared dreams, now echoed with a loneliness that was almost unbearable. I sat in our favorite armchair, clutching the fabric that still carried her faint scent, and tried to piece together the sudden shift in our world. How had it come to this? Had I been so blind to the subtle signals, the furtive glances, the distracted phone calls, the small moments when her smile didn't quite reach her eyes? Each recollection was a dagger, twisting deeper into the quiet hope I had so long believed in. That evening, as I sat in the dim light of our dining room, I realized that the true sting of her departure wasn't just the loss of a partner. It was the loss of a shared future. I had envisioned us exploring the world together, laughing at the little things and supporting each other through thick and thin. Instead, I was left alone with the bitter knowledge that she had chosen her own path, a path that no longer included me. The irony was as painful as it was surreal. While she sought solitude in a journey of self-discovery, I was forced to confront the void she had left behind. It was in that quiet despair that I made a vow to myself, a promise that I would not let this betrayal define my existence. Determined to reclaim control over my life, I began to question every decision, every sacrifice I had made in the name of our love. I dove into the details of our shared history, reviewing old photos, reading through cherished letters, and reflecting on the long hours spent building what I thought was an unbreakable bond. With each memory, I felt a growing resolve to rediscover my own worth, a worth that was not dependent on someone else's fleeting need for independence. I realized that her decision to take a solo trip was not merely an act of self-exploration. It was a statement that our union, as I had known it, was over. And so, I resolved that if she was determined to be free, I would be even freer. Free to rebuild, free to redefine success, and free to pursue a future that celebrated my individuality. In that moment of quiet, painful introspection, I began to draft plans for a new beginning. I promised myself that I would not waste my life wallowing in sorrow. Instead, I would harness this heartbreak as the fuel for a transformation that would leave no doubt about my worth. I started envisioning a future where I traveled the world, experienced new adventures, and built a life so fulfilling that even she would be compelled to acknowledge the strength of the man I had become. I laid the groundwork for a comeback that was both personal and professional, one that would redefine every measure of success in my life. Every promise I made to myself that night was a stepping stone toward a future where I was no longer defined by betrayal, but by the endless possibilities that awaited me. As I closed my journal that night, the rain pattering softly against the window, I felt a flicker of hope amidst the darkness, a promise that my story was far from over. I was determined to rise above the pain, to rebuild not only what had been lost but to forge something new and magnificent from the ashes of our shattered dreams. And so, with a heavy heart but an unbreakable spirit, I stepped into the uncertain dawn of a new era. One where I would embrace my independence, celebrate my resilience, and ultimately become everything I was meant to be. In the days that followed that life-altering night, my world became a maze of raw emotion and relentless introspection. I found myself caught between a haze of bitter despair and a fierce determination to reclaim every ounce of my identity. Each morning, I awoke with the memory of her solitary departure, a haunting echo of the moment when she decided to leave without me, and the bittersweet realization that the very idea of our shared life was irrevocably shattered. I spent hours wandering through the empty corridors of our home, each room filled with silent reminders of the dreams we once nurtured together. Every photograph on the mantel, every familiar piece of furniture, spoke 1,000 words of what was lost and yet, paradoxically, kindled within me a spark of defiance that refused to be snuffed out. Determined not to be defined by her absence, I immersed myself in a rigorous process of self-reinvention. I began by gathering every scrap of evidence and every memory that had once made our relationship feel so real. Late into the night, I would sit at my desk with a single lamp casting long shadows across the scattered pages of my journal. I wrote feverishly, detailing the subtle signs that had preceded her departure, the furtive glances, the distracted tone in her voice, and the unexplained phone calls that had seemed innocuous at the time. Each entry was a painful yet cathartic release, a way to understand how the woman I had loved so deeply could have chosen a solitary journey over the bond we once shared. With every word, I began to see that her decision was not an isolated incident of wanderlust. It was the final act of a slow, creeping disillusionment that had been building over months. The realization was gut-wrenching, but it also forced me to confront the uncomfortable truth about who we had become. I realized that in order to move forward, I needed to rebuild not only the remnants of our shared past but also the foundation of my own self-worth. I plunged into a daily regimen of reflection and practical planning. Mornings became sacred rituals of self-care, long runs through the still dark streets, the rhythmic pounding of my feet echoing the steady beat of a heart slowly reclaiming its strength. These runs were meditative, a way to clear the debris of my shattered dreams and to start each day with a renewed sense of purpose. The cool, crisp air against my skin and the solitary quiet of the early hours allowed me to gather my thoughts, to remind myself that each step forward was a step away from the pain of betrayal. During the afternoons, I turned my focus to my professional life. I dove headfirst into my work, channeling every ounce of anger and hurt into innovative projects and strategic planning sessions. I was determined to prove to myself, and, in time, to the world, that I was capable of achieving far more than the role I had been confined to. I took on new challenges at work with an intensity that surprised even my most supportive colleagues. Every meeting, every presentation, became a battleground on which I fought not only for recognition but for the reclamation of my dignity. I immersed myself in industry research, attended conferences, and sought out mentorship from those who had weathered similar storms. With every new idea and every project completed, I felt the sting of her departure gradually give way to the thrill of personal and professional triumph. Simultaneously, I scrutinized my financial life with a laser focus. I sat down with a trusted financial advisor and meticulously reviewed every aspect of our shared finances. It was a painful process, one filled with long nights and hard truths. I discovered that the money we had set aside for future adventures and shared goals was now entirely mine to manage, untouched by the plans she had made without me. Each upward tick in my savings account became a silent victory, a tangible reminder that I was reclaiming control over my future. I restructured my budget, set new financial goals, and began exploring investment opportunities that promised not only growth but also the stability I desperately needed. With every careful calculation and prudent decision, I built a safety net that was solely mine, fortifying myself against any future betrayals. Through it all, therapy became my anchor in the storm. I attended sessions where I could unpack the layers of raw emotion that had accumulated over the years. In the quiet, safe space of my therapist's office, I learned to confront the pain head-on, to let the anger, sorrow, and lingering confusion flow freely without judgment. We dissected every moment of doubt and betrayal, and slowly, I began to understand that her desire to be alone was not a reflection of my inadequacies, but a symptom of her own internal struggles. This realization, though difficult, was liberating. It allowed me to see that my worth was not diminished by her choices, but rather defined by my ability to rise above them. Each session, each breakthrough in understanding chipped away at the barriers of resentment, replacing them with a hard-earned sense of self-worth and a clear vision for the future. I also reached out to old friends and family members who had always believed in me, seeking comfort and perspective in their familiar voices. Late-night conversations over steaming cups of coffee, or long walks in quiet parks, became opportunities to share my story and to listen to their own tales of resilience. Their empathy and unwavering support reinforced the belief that I was not alone, that many had faced similar heartbreak and emerged stronger on the other side. These interactions were deeply healing. They reminded me that true strength is often forged in the fires of betrayal and that every setback is merely a precursor to a greater comeback. Each friend's word of encouragement, each shared laugh over bittersweet memories, stitched together the frayed edges of my spirit, gradually weaving a tapestry of hope and renewed purpose. Amid this profound internal work, I began to envision a future that was entirely my own. A life where the pain of her departure would be transformed into a powerful legacy of resilience and self-determination. I started drafting plans for new adventures, not as a means of escape, but as a way to celebrate my independence. I researched travel destinations that promised cultural richness, natural beauty, and the opportunity to reconnect with my inner self. The idea of exploring the world on my own terms filled me with a sense of liberation, a promise that the world was vast and full of possibilities beyond the confines of a failed relationship. Every itinerary I planned, every new destination I considered, was a declaration that I was ready to reclaim my freedom and live life on my own terms. By integrating these multifaceted efforts, professional reinvention, financial restructuring, emotional healing, and the bold embrace of personal freedom, I began to see the first tangible signs of transformation. My resume, once a source of quiet frustration, was now a testament to my renewed capabilities. I started receiving invitations for job interviews at companies that valued innovation and leadership. Each interview, each successful pitch, was a building block toward a future where my talents would no longer be overshadowed by betrayal but celebrated for the strength they embodied. I also took on freelance projects, allowing me to explore new creative avenues and further establish my reputation as someone who could turn adversity into opportunity. The culmination of all these efforts, each painstakingly undertaken, began to weave together a new narrative, a narrative where I was no longer defined by a single moment of heartbreak, but by the ongoing journey of reclaiming every facet of my identity. I realized that while the memory of her leaving would never entirely fade, it had also become the catalyst for an extraordinary personal and professional metamorphosis. Every challenge, every tear shed in solitude, had prepared me for this moment of quiet, resolute determination. I was crafting a life that was rich in purpose, built on the unshakable belief that my value was inherent and unassailable. In the months that followed, as I slowly gathered the shattered pieces of my heart and rebuilt my life brick by painstaking brick, the transformation became undeniable. I emerged from the depths of betrayal with a renewed sense of purpose, each day an opportunity to redefine my identity and claim the future that was mine alone. The once festering wounds of her sudden departure had gradually given way to a quiet but unyielding resilience, a determination to reclaim joy and write a new chapter on my own terms. I began to see that the hurt, as painful as it was, had also been the catalyst for discovering the strength that had always lain dormant within me. I threw myself into a life of calculated reinvention. Mornings became a sacred ritual of liberation. I rose with the sun, laced up my running shoes and hit the empty, dew-drenched streets, each footstep a meditation on renewal. The crisp air and steady rhythm of my pace cleared the haze of despair, replacing it with a resolute clarity that I was moving forward, regardless of the shadows that once haunted me. With each mile, I felt a little lighter, a little more free, a silent promise that I would no longer allow past betrayals to anchor me in sorrow. At work, I embraced opportunities that challenged the boundaries of my creativity and skill. I assumed roles that demanded innovative thinking and decisive leadership, and with each project I led, I transformed my pain into palpable progress. Boardrooms that had once been a stage for quiet disappointment became arenas where I asserted my vision with passion. My ideas, once dismissed or overshadowed, now sparked robust discussions and enthusiastic nods from colleagues and superiors alike. Every successful presentation, every negotiated deal, was a small victory that not only restored my self-respect but also cemented my reputation as someone who could turn adversity into opportunity. I felt empowered, more than ever before, by the realization that I was capable of transcending the heartbreak of a failed marriage and emerging as a true leader in my field. Financially, I meticulously restructured my portfolio, ensuring that every decision was a step toward a secure and independent future. I diversified my investments, reallocated my savings, and even explored entrepreneurial ventures that ignited my passion for innovation. Each upward tick in my bank statements was a tangible reminder that I was not only regaining control of my finances, but I was also building a legacy that would last far beyond any moment of betrayal. The hard-earned inheritance I had safeguarded, once a secret shield against uncertainty, now became a foundation upon which I could launch new endeavors, a symbol of the power to rebuild even after the most devastating losses. But amid these professional triumphs and financial victories, it was my personal evolution that shone the brightest. In the wake of her departure, I began to explore the vast, uncharted territories of self-discovery. I reconnected with old passions that had lain dormant, revisiting hobbies that had once brought me solace and joy. I returned to painting, letting my emotions flow onto canvas in a burst of vibrant color that mirrored the spectrum of my renewed spirit. I picked up a pen again and began writing long, unfiltered essays about my journey, from the gut-wrenching moment of her saying she was done to the gradual emergence of a self I had never fully known before. I even started a blog where my words resonated with others who had experienced their own heartbreak, each message of support and shared experience a quiet affirmation that I was not alone. In those creative pursuits, I found not only healing but also a renewed sense of identity, a man who was free to express the full spectrum of his emotions without fear or judgment. As time passed, I embraced life's adventures with a fervor that surprised even me. One day, on a spontaneous impulse born of my reclaimed independence, I booked a vacation, not a quiet retreat into solitude but an exciting, exuberant trip with a vibrant, kindred spirit I had met through my renewed social circles. This wasn't about escapism, it was about celebrating life in its fullest, richest form. I traveled to distant shores where I explored ancient ruins, dined on exotic foods under starlit skies, and forged unforgettable memories. Every moment of that trip was a declaration of freedom, a bold statement that I was now living life on my own terms, embracing every joy and every challenge with open arms. I laughed, I danced, and I reveled in the simple pleasure of being truly alive. My heart, once heavy with sorrow, now beat with the rhythm of discovery and unbridled hope. As I reveled in the thrill of new experiences, word of my transformation began to spread, quietly at first, then with increasing clarity. I received subtle hints that she, too, was beginning to feel the sting of regret. I learned that she was now watching from afar as I immersed myself in life's myriad adventures with someone who understood and celebrated me, a person who shared my passion for exploration and who saw in me a strength that she had once tried to diminish. The irony was palpable. The woman who had chosen to walk away in search of freedom now found herself watching as I built a life so rich with meaning and vibrancy that it shone as a beacon of everything she had lost. Each time I saw her name mentioned in passing conversations, or heard of her struggling to find her own footing, a quiet vindication stirred within me, not out of malice, but out of the profound realization that I had grown into a man far beyond the limitations she had imposed. Every day on that vacation, as I strolled along sun-dappled beaches and savored the breathtaking vistas of new lands, I felt a deep, almost overwhelming sense of renewal. The memories of that painful night gradually faded into the background, replaced by the joyous, unrestrained celebration of a life reclaimed. The laughter of my newfound companion, the warmth of exotic sunsets, and the endless expanse of the horizon all converged to create a moment of perfect clarity. I realized then that true happiness was not a product of another's validation, but a state of being achieved by embracing every facet of who I was. My strengths, my vulnerabilities, and my unyielding capacity for love. By the time I returned from that transformative vacation, I was a changed man. I had shed the weight of her betrayal like an old, tattered cloak, replacing it with the vibrant armor of self-belief and determination. I resumed my daily life with a newfound vigor, a quiet confidence that permeated every aspect of my being. I continued to excel at work, my innovative ideas earning me accolades and opening doors to opportunities one had once only dreamed of. I nurtured my personal relationships with an authenticity that drew people to me, forging bonds that were deep, genuine, and unencumbered by the shadows of the past. And every time I caught a glimpse of her in social circles, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly as she saw me laughing, traveling, and thriving, I felt a calm, unshakable satisfaction knowing that I had built a future that was mine alone. In the end, the journey that began with heartbreak and betrayal had led me to a place of profound empowerment. I had learned that every painful moment was a lesson, every tear a stepping stone, and every setback an opportunity to rise. I discovered that true strength lies in the courage to rebuild from ruins, to transform every scar into a symbol of resilience. My life was now a tapestry woven with threads of hardship, triumph, creativity, and relentless determination. A tapestry that told the story of a man who had refused to be defined by the failures of others and had instead carved out a destiny that was as expansive as it was uniquely his own. Now, as I stand at the threshold of an exciting new chapter, one where I continue to explore, to lead, and to create a legacy of unyielding strength, I carry with me the indelible lessons of my journey. I know that there will always be challenges ahead, that the road to self-discovery is never truly complete, but I also know that I have within me the power to overcome whatever may come. The future is an open canvas, and I am ready to paint it with the bold, vibrant colors of hope, passion, and unwavering resilience. Every day is a reminder that I am the master of my destiny, a destiny forged in the crucible of betrayal, yet illuminated by the relentless light of renewal. And so, with a heart full of gratitude and a spirit that soars with possibility, I step boldly into tomorrow, ready to embrace all that life has to offer and to continue writing the extraordinary story of my life.